Hey guys, Thomas here. So, the Disastrous Life of Saiki K is something that's been recommended to me for ages, but I put it aside because, well, it was still ongoing back then, and like, holy shit, it's well over 100 episodes, and I wasn't ready to tackle something that big. Until I learned that it's actually 4 minutes per episode, which equates to just like 2 full seasons. And since it finished with the summer season right now, it's time to get into the life of this pink-haired boy. So, The Disastrous Life of Saiki K is exactly that. A story about Saiki and his disastrous life. It might seem something simple at first glance, but the premise lends itself to super complex and limitless amount of stories, since the main character Saiki is a god. He's a normal kid in that he was born into a normal family, but he has the power to teleport, see through things, fly, turn invisible, talk to animals, and yeah, pretty much a god. Well, demigod to be more exact. Because they don't go overboard with these powers, which adds so much reality and believability to the plot. Yeah, believability in a story about school kid who has godlike powers. I know how that sounds, but they tone it down and limit his powers. So for example, he can teleport, but has to wait 2 minutes before he can teleport again. He can alter people's memories, but he can only remove memories so they fill the blanks themselves. He can restore anything to the previous state it was 24 hours ago, but only once per day. And these powers lend themselves to so many wacky stories. They get trapped on a deserted island, Saiki travels to the future and the past, he saves Japan from a volcano, and there's even some gender bender stuff in there. And all throughout he just wants an average life, to stay away from troubles. But he's always brought back to craziness thanks to his friends. And those friends are made of a wide cast of characters that I really love. They're a blast to get to know, and though some of them may be a bit tropey, none of them get to the point of being annoying. Let's just say that none of them is at the level of Jar Jar Binksing the story with their comedic relief. We have the standard pretty girl, who's not that pretty on the inside, but she never comes off as too much of an asshole. We have the perv who can talk to ghosts, but also has a human side to him. And we have Kaido, who is crazy. He's just crazy. Oren, who is an ex-punk but trying to turn his life around. Hyro, who's just pumped up all the time and cheers everybody on. And then we have Nendo, who is just Nendo. He's pretty awesome. All these characters are an exaggerated version of people who we might have come across in our lives, but they still retain their humanity. We emphasize with them, and none of them are degraded to just being simply comedic relief. They even constantly keep on adding new and interesting characters in there. As the show progresses, more people with superpowers come on, and some of them even challenge Saiki a bit. Which brings me to the topic of where this show excels, and that's comedy. And yeah, Saiki is first and foremost a comedy show, but not a simple one, it's a short form one, which I haven't had the best relationships with in the past. Mostly due to the fact that they have around 2 to 5 minutes to tell a story, and it's hard to make something with a setup and proper punchline, so they mostly rely on shock humor. And those either suck really hard, as in the case of Vampire Holmes or Sekko Boys or Sushi Police, Oz Mafia, etc., or start off really great and funny, but then get boring and annoying after a while, since the jokes are just based on random humor that gets stale, especially when binging the shows. As an example, Gaku and Handsome, Seiyu, Inferno Cop, Cromarty High School, and I loved Plastic Knee-san. But the whole running time of the entire 12 episode show was 24 minutes, and even that got stale at the end. So imagine doing a short form comedy for over 1,000 minutes and not getting boring. But Saiki is so much more than that. It's not just like, hey look, this is so random. I binged Saiki and it never got boring. The jokes were fresh, and while it did do some obvious ones like meta-humor jokes, it didn't rely on them like a crutch. It was just a clever way to get around tropes that the industry has built up by blaming them on superpowers. For example, why does everybody in anime have different hair colors all the time? In the case of this show, it's because Saiki needed to fit in better with everybody, and since it's hard to do with pink hair, he might control people so they dye their hair exotic colors. Which was like, whoa, that's a neat idea. And the thing that a lot of comedic shows lack that I think is one of the biggest factors in their downfall is evolution. Saiki is episodic in nature, yes, but it also accumulates what happens in the previous episodes. People change, new characters are introduced, and even the dynamics that people have change over time. Like, those two weren't in love in the beginning, but stuff happened, story progressed, and now they have a different kind of relationship. It's growing with each episode, and that adds a lot of value in the long run. That's how you can keep on making jokes with the same characters without wearing them out and not sticking to the same random humor all the time. Okay, so one thing that Saiki really loves is his coffee jelly, and I've never tried it myself, so I'm really curious in how it tastes. The thing is that I don't have any internet connection right now, so I'll be completely winging it. So we got our gelatin and our coffee. It's said that this whole package is for like 1.5 liters, but I don't have time to wait that much, so I'm gonna use more in hopes that it's gonna thicken faster. Oh yeah. Oh. And now we just wait. It does have some negative sides too, but it did take me a while to actually think of any. Like, the start of the second season seemed a bit boring to me. It just felt like they're doing the same thing again and again, but it really picked up after a while and might have even exceeded the first season for me. The animation is crappy, but it's consistently crappy and story matters more, so I'm okay with that. And also the subtitles are a bit hard to follow. Now, I watched the first season on Netflix because it's there, dubbed, and it was really cool. But the second season wasn't dubbed, so I had to watch it with subtitles, and then I realized how hard it is to keep up because some of the people talk at the same time and there's also stuff appearing on the screen at the same time, so it kinda gets hard to follow. And another thing is that all jokes can't be winners, so of course there are some bad stories out there too, and I felt like the most boring ones were the ones where they just stuck around doing average school life, because that has been portrayed in a lot of shows before and the jokes weren't that original, especially in the case of the school play episode, which didn't just span 1 or 2 episodes, but 4 episodes. And it didn't have anything that interesting happening in it. There was a lot of setup and gags here and there, but not any major payoff. It just ended on a happy note like, hey, we did it, let's be happy. But again, these are just minor faults in the overall grand scheme of things. Fuck. Oh. So in conclusion, I feel like it's a perfect blend of comedy and passive storytelling, with a well put together cast. I would even go as far as to say that it's one of the best comedy shows out there, if not the best. It doesn't rely on simple gimmicks, gags or shock humor. The jokes are thought out, carefully planned, and it has its own limitation that it never goes out of. And well, yeah, the powers might seem a bit random at times, but in the very beginning they state what the powers are and the limitations of them, so it sets up rules that it tells the viewers, so it helps us comprehend the possibilities of that world a bit better. Now, it's not a perfect show and it does have its faults, so at the beginning I was planning on giving it a 8.5 out of 10, but Mal doesn't allow decimal numbers, so it gets a 9 out of 10. Honestly, I wouldn't have expected it to be this good. Like, it does no wrongs. It's like the Teruhashi of anime world. A bit messed up on the inside, but really trying to please everybody to the best of its abilities. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't yet, recommend me any anime to review in the future, and I'll see you next week with something really spicy in mind. Okay, see you then.